The governor is in Ewing. Let's listen in.
Completed a briefing with our executive team to begin the next step of preparations. We've been preparing for this since Monday. The latest tracking tells us that this is going to become more serious than less. We've moved to an extreme rating from the National Weather Service in terms of the impact on New Jersey, and the current tracking is going to lead to, if it continues, a serious, significant event in the state. The Emergency Operations Center has been activated. We've been preparing, as I said. Department coordination, the State Police, the National Guard, Homeland Security and Preparedness, the DEP, Department of Transportation, and Human Services. Before I entered the room, I had a declaration of a state of emergency already in anticipation of what's going to be happening. That will allow General Reith to begin to deploy National Guard resources throughout the state immediately, and he is begun to execute on those orders which I just signed. The state OEM is coordinating with every county, all 21, as they mobilize preparations at the county and local level. And this is very important to emphasize for local elected officials and for county officials. Any request for any assistance must come through from the local to the county up to the state OEM. We will not be dealing with individual requests to the National Guard or others from localities. They have to go through the coordinated system. That's the only way for us to be able to assess and evaluate the relative need of the various requests, and to be able to get a handle on what's going on throughout the state on a real-time basis throughout all 21 counties. I'm going to turn it over for a moment to Colonel Fuentes for him to give an update on the status of the hurricane and where we see things going right now. I'll come back to talk about a few other things, and then bring Director McKenna and General Reith to talk about some stuff, and then I'll take questions from you. So, Colonel.
Thank you, Governor. Well, as the Governor pointed out, but we've been working with county and local OEMs since Monday, looking at all the possible scenarios, and we basically woke up this morning to find that the storm had wobbled westward, and that was not a good sign for us, because it looks like the eye is going to pass very close to, if not over, Cape May, which means that the barrier islands that are concentrated in Atlantic County and in Cape May County are going to be subject to some very high winds. They're going to be subject to a storm surge which may run as much as 12 feet as a result of the coincidence of astronomical tides on Saturday night and Sunday morning. And so we're engaged in somewhat extraordinary discussions beyond the normal discussions that we've had over the last few days about the nature of evacuations. And the Governor is probably going to talk a little bit more about that. The entire state is obviously going to be subject to a pretty terrible rain event. As a matter of fact, right now, and this system doesn't have anything to do with the hurricane, we're looking at 1 to 2 inches of rain through very early or in the overnight hours. And then tomorrow should be a nice day, which is going to play very well for the evacuations that we're asking and working with the counties to carry out. And then Saturday evening, we're literally going to be in the thick of it with tropical storm winds that are going to be arriving down in the Cape May area, probably around 6 p.m. They're going to build in intensity to Cat 1 hurricane force winds, which may run upwards of 80 miles an hour as we get into the early Sunday morning hours. So obviously at that point in time, we want everybody to be home, to be properly prepped. We don't want anybody on those barriers, and we're going to be working very, very closely with the county and local OEMs to make sure that we get everybody out of harm's way and that we restrict access on any bridge entry to those islands as we get closer to the event, because it doesn't make sense to take people off while we're letting people in. So all of those things are occurring right now. You can imagine that this is a very dynamic situation. We have excellent partnerships in this state, and I think everybody knows that. And this is where we take it beyond the battlefield conditions and put it to work. So I want to thank the counties and the locals for their assistance in this.
Great. Thanks, Rick. I'll take that. Thanks. Okay, on Colonel mentioned the issue of evacuation. First thing, anyone who has shore rentals or who are planning to go to the shore this weekend, do not go. If your rental starts on Saturday or Sunday, do not go. As the Colonel said, we are anticipating this to hit on Saturday night, and as a result, we won't know well into Monday what the level of potential damage is in those areas, both to property and to any life that would be out there. And so we do not want folks going to the shore this weekend, and we're urging them not to do it. If you're there at the shore now, in the midst of a rental that runs till Saturday or Sunday, or a permanent home that you have there, or you're visiting in some other way, we would like, and I'm urging folks to voluntarily leave either tonight or during the day tomorrow. But certainly by tomorrow night, I would ask everybody to be voluntarily out of the shore area, especially the barrier islands that Rick referenced before. As we monitor the storm, it's very likely that we'll close off all access to the barrier islands sometime on Saturday, once we've had the opportunity to have as many folks as can leave to leave. And we're going to continue to monitor this. Right now, I'm asking people to do this voluntarily. I am actively considering a mandatory evacuation, but I'm not there yet. If I am, I'll be coming back out before you to order a mandatory evacuation. But certainly the executive order I just signed and the general powers of the governorship permit me to do that at any time, and if I believe it's necessary, I'll do so. But right now, I'd like everybody who's at the shore area, certainly by midday tomorrow, to be out of the shore area and headed back home to where you permanently. The local shelters are being opened and will be available for access soon. Certainly will be available for access by the time we're going to be asking anybody to evacuate in a mandatory fashion or before the storm hits on Saturday evening, whichever comes first. There is a website for people to go to help prepare themselves for the storm. It's www.njready.gov. Director McKenna will go through that in more detail and some of the specifics of things that people should be doing to be prepared. The good news about this is that we have enough time to be prepared. And so people need to utilize the time over the next 24 to 36 hours in an efficient, effective way. Do not leave things until the last minute. Get ready now for what will be coming on Saturday. Local officials out there, mayors, council people, freeholders, county executives, should be notifying their communities about where shelters are available. Use all the resources that you have at the local and county level to get that information out there as to where shelters will be available for those folks who need it. We've been coordinating with the Red Cross and the Salvation Army and the State Food Bank to ensure access to food and water and shelter all across the state. Homeland Security and Preparedness has been working on just such preparations for warehousing, for food and water in a centralized place in the state, and Director McKenna's efforts have put that in place for us prior to this incident. So the bottom line for the people, especially in South Jersey at the shore, is begin to get ready to leave now, and please leave by midday tomorrow. For those folks in other places around the state, understand, especially in South Jersey, we had the significant rain at a number of dams failing last week. The additional rain we're having today across the state will not only affect, obviously, what's going on in the ocean, but in the rivers across the state are going to be almost at capacity already after today's rain incident. So there is going to be some significant chance of flooding if we get the type of rainfall that's being at least predicted now by tracking. So people who are in the areas that are prone to flooding, and the local officials in those areas need to be prepared and start working now to interact with their county OEMs and the state OEM to be able to be prepared for what's going to happen there as well. And for anybody, whether you're in a low-lying area that floods or you're anyplace else in the state, there's probably no part of the state, if the storm continues to track the way it is, that won't be affected by this. And so I'm going to turn it over to Director McKenna for him to give advice to New Jerseyans on the mainland, things you need to do to prepare for the weekend, and to give a little bit of greater depth to the njready.gov website, what it can do, and what they should be working on. So, Charlie.
Thank you, Governor. To those of you who haven't already prepared for this storm, the time to prepare is now. No one should underestimate this storm at all, because it can bring incredibly harmful effects. The first thing people should do is formulate a plan, and as the Governor said, you can go to www.njready.gov. That will give you all the information you need to know about how to formulate a plan. The plan should include a number of things. The first thing you should do is make sure that if you have a car, you top off the gas tank in that car. The high winds in this storm could very well knock out power for a substantial period of time. Gas pumps will not work. ATMs will not work. If you need cash, you want to get that cash before the power goes out. You want to make sure that you have flashlights. And you want to have batteries to power those flashlights. You want to make sure you have a hand crank radio so that you can listen to news reports. You want to make sure that if you take prescription drugs, that you have an adequate supply of those prescription drugs. And if you don't, you want to fill those prescriptions now. You want to make sure you have a first aid kit in your house. You want to make sure that you have adequate food and water. And that should include 1 gallon of water per person per day. And you should just have 5 days food and water on that. And you want to have non-perishable foods that you can have, and can openers to get into those non-perishable foods. If you have children, you want to make sure that you have baby formula and that you have diapers. And finally, you want to make sure that you monitor the reports on the radio and that you heed the word of your emergency management personnel who tell you what to inform you what to do, and make sure that you know the emergency evacuation routes around your towns. So again, don't underestimate this storm, and the more preparation you do for the storm, the better off you're going to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. I had an opportunity to be briefed also this morning by General Reith. The good news for us is that there's only about 500 of our National Guard personnel who are deployed outside of the state right now, which means that both from an equipment and a personnel level, we're in a very good position to be able to have the National Guard play a key role in being able to help us deal with what's going to be coming over the next 72 hours and beyond. And so General Reith has been here, has been a part of the preparation right from the beginning. We'll continue as we go forward to, along with me, be commanding the forces that we have at our disposal for the National Guard. So I'll turn over to General Reith to talk about that.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. Let me just reemphasize what the Governor just indicated. The majority of our team, both Army and Air, is within the state. Good news, because all of our equipment, both rotary wing and high-wheeled vehicles to allow us to respond out into the communities, are there. We're in contact with Northern Command, which has the overall federal responsibility, assists the states at the request of the Governor, and we're working through that process to ensure that if there's additional military assets that are needed here within the state, they'll come in a timely fashion. And lastly, I just want to dovetail on what the superintendent said. We are military first responders that go out at the direction of the New Jersey OEM. And we don't take any request at the municipal or county level. They come from the state level. This is the center of gravity for the response. And at the end of the day, we respond from the state police, from the New Jersey Office of Emergency Management. Thank you.
Last thing before I take questions is I want to emphasize to folks again, I know that over the course of time, people get warnings, whether it's been about severe snowstorms or other severe weather activities that turn out maybe not to be as advertised. I can't guarantee people what's going to happen over the course of the next few days, but what I will tell you is that the current tracking of the storm is not positive for our state. And so if you're being directed by emergency management personnel at the local or county level or at the state level to move and to go someplace else, do not try to ride it out. It is not the smart thing to do. I will not order evacuation unless I believe it's absolutely necessary, but if I order it, I expect it to be complied with, and we will enforce that order to evacuate people from areas where we believe that they're in potential life-threatening circumstances. And so the advice that you're getting at the local, county, and state level is advice that you should follow. And I understand that sometimes folks think that people overreact in this situation. Let me assure you that we are not overreacting. We need to be ready for this, and if we give advice that we want you to things like leave the shore in the next 24 hours, I hope that people will comply with that in a voluntary way and not force my hand in having to make it mandatory. So I appreciate that being conveyed out to the public, and now prepared to take questions. Michael.